Inside Rikers Island, America's most dangerous jail. The screams echoed long before Officer Malik Turner reached the bridge connecting Rikers Island to the rest of New York City. Dawn hadn't broken yet, but the island was already awake. Flashing red lights, blaring alarms, and radios buzzing with urgent voices. Unit 6 responding. Possible emergency in Module C. Staff shortage, backup delayed. Turner gripped the steering wheel, jaw clenched. Staff shortages weren't unusual here. Neither were emergencies. But the urgency in the dispatcher's voice told him this morning wasn't like the others. The massive jail complex loomed ahead, surrounded by cold winds sweeping across the East River. Rikers Island had always been a world separate from New York, a world where chaos didn't wait for sunrise. As Turner entered the main corridor, officers rushed past him, some half-dressed in gear because there hadn't been enough staff overnight to cover all posts. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing like frustrated insects. "What's happening?" Turner asked an officer jogging by. "Gate malfunction in C-95. And we're down 2 posts. They're trying to contain it." Turner didn't need further explanation. C-95 had been flagged multiple times in state reports: overcrowded dorms, broken cameras, limited supervision. When something went wrong there, it went wrong fast. He ran toward the unit. Inside C-95, chaos pulsed like a heartbeat. The unit was packed, far beyond its intended capacity, with cots squeezed into every available space. Turner could tell instantly that the tension here wasn't new. It had been simmering for days, maybe weeks. The jails were short-staffed again. Officers exhausted. Inmates frustrated. The perfect storm. At the far side of the dorm, a metal door hung slightly open, the lock misaligned. A malfunction, small in appearance, massive in consequence. Turner's radio crackled. "We need bodies in C-95 now." He pushed through the crowd with 2 other officers, not with aggression but urgency. Involuntary movements rippled through the dorm, men stepping back, others stepping forward, everyone unsure what would happen next. Then Turner saw him. A man standing near the malfunctioning door, tall, tense, watching the officers with a stillness that unnerved him. Not angry. Not panicked. Just calculating. Turner recognized him immediately. Darius Holt. Holt wasn't the strongest inmate in the dorm. He wasn't the loudest either. But he had authority. The quiet kind. The kind built from reading the room faster than anyone else. Turner approached carefully. "Holt. Door malfunction?" Holt didn't blink. "Been malfunctioning for 3 days. You report it?" Holt's expression hardened. "Reported it last week. Twice." Turner felt a cold wave move through him. Reports disappeared often on Rikers. Lost, misplaced, or ignored during understaffed shifts. "This is exactly why we keep telling y'all," someone else muttered behind Holt. "Nobody listens until something breaks." There it was, the truth that lived in every corner of Rikers. This wasn't a crisis born overnight. It was a crisis born from neglect. Turner ordered everyone to step back as he inspected the door. The lock had slipped entirely from its housing. Whoever designed it never imagined a unit this overcrowded or this understaffed. He called it in. "Control, we have a structural failure in C-95. Request immediate maintenance." Static. Then a tired voice. "We have 1 maintenance worker on shift. He's already responding to another emergency. ETA unknown." Turner closed his eyes briefly. Unknown. The most dangerous word on Rikers Island. As the morning deepened, more officers finally arrived to stabilize the unit. But the dorm's atmosphere had changed. It wasn't the broken door that unsettled them, it was what Turner noticed while repairing it. A folded piece of paper wedged behind the steel frame. He pulled it out discreetly. The handwriting was rough but precise. A message. A warning. If the door doesn't hold, nothing else will. Turner looked at Holt. Holt looked back, unreadable. "You know about this?" Turner asked quietly. Holt shook his head once. "But whoever wrote it ain't lying." Before Turner could respond, the unit lights flickered again. A moment of darkness fell across the dorm. Then the emergency siren blared. Another incident. Another unit. Another failure Rikers wasn't prepared for. Turner jogged out of C-95, gripping the note in his pocket. The alarm echoed through the corridors, bouncing off concrete walls like a distress call the city would never hear. Rikers was more than overcrowded, more than understaffed. It was unstable. And the note wasn't just a warning. It was a prediction. As Turner reached the next unit, another officer ran toward him, panic tightening his voice. "You need to see this," he said breathlessly. "We found something in the staff corridor, something someone hid." Turner followed him down the hallway. They stopped at a storage closet. The officer pointed at the door. "It was unlocked when we arrived," he said. "And what's inside shouldn't be there." Turner pushed the door open, heart pounding. Inside was a folder marked with an internal investigation report. A report dated months earlier. A report that detailed every failure Rikers was experiencing today. And written on the final page was a statement that made Turner's blood run cold. If conditions continue to deteriorate, the next incident will not be containable. He stared at the sentence. The next incident. The alarm still blared in the distance. And Turner realized. It had already started. Turner stood frozen in the dimly lit storage corridor, the internal investigation folder open in his hands. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed above him as the alarm echoed through the unit, vibrating against the concrete walls like a warning bell no one wanted to acknowledge. The report was thicker than he expected. Pages crowded with observations from multiple inspectors, each describing the same thing in different words. Chaos creeping across Rikers Island long before anyone outside realized what was happening. "You see why I said you needed to come?" the younger officer whispered, glancing nervously down the hall. "This wasn't supposed to be here." Turner flipped through the pages, each line tightening the knot in his chest. Short staffing. Delayed medical responses. Broken doors and malfunctioning locks. Unreported incidents. High-risk units without adequate supervision. It wasn't just a list of problems. It was a map of collapse. And the sentence on the final page kept circling in his mind. If conditions continue to deteriorate, the next incident will not be containable. Turner closed the folder slowly. "Who found this?" "It was behind the mop cart," the officer replied. "Someone hid it. Maybe someone who wanted it found. Or someone who didn't want it seen." Turner wasn't sure which possibility was worse. Before he could respond, the radio on his shoulder crackled violently. Multiple inmates refusing to lock in on the North Tier. Officers requesting assistance, now. Another crisis. Another fire in a building made of dry wood. Turner handed the file to the young officer. "Keep this safe. Nobody touches it unless I say so." Then he ran. When Turner reached the North Tier, the tension was thick as smoke. Inmates crowded near the railings, talking in low, urgent tones. Officers stood several yards away, wary but steady. No one was acting recklessly, but no one was backing down either. And Turner immediately understood why. At the center of the tier stood a man he recognized instantly. Darius Holt. Observant. Standing as if trying to hold the entire unit together. Turner stepped forward cautiously. "Holt, what's going on now?" Holt pointed down the walkway. "There." Turner followed his gesture and saw a second malfunctioning door, this one barely hanging on its hinges. The bolts had worn down so thin the steel drooped like softened wax. "Been like this for weeks," Holt said quietly. "We told them. Every day. Nothing happened." Turner exhaled. 2 major structural failures in the same morning. 2 failures that had been reported and ignored. A pattern. The next line from the investigation report hit him again. The next incident will not be containable. Turner approached the damaged door, noting the small details. A missing bolt, a widened gap, deep scratches around the lock housing. "This door didn't break today," he muttered. "It's been dying slowly." Behind him, Holt spoke louder now, not angrily but with the weight of someone who knew the truth long before the administration did. "Officer Turner, people think Rikers is dangerous because of us. But look around." He gestured at the tired officers, the broken infrastructure, the crowded tier. "This place is dangerous because it's falling apart." Turner didn't deny it. He didn't have the luxury of pretending otherwise. A supervisor arrived moments later, red-faced and agitated. "Why isn't this tier locked in yet? We have other emergencies." Turner cut him off. "Because the door is failing. Again." The supervisor looked at the hanging hinge, then quickly looked away, as if acknowledging the problem made him responsible for it. "We'll handle it later," he said. "No," Turner replied firmly. "We handle it now." The supervisor glared. "Enough with your tone. This is above your pay." A loud crack snapped through the air. The top hinge finally gave way, metal bending under pressure. The entire tier fell silent. Turner stared at the door, the weight of the moment pressing on him like a physical force. That report from months ago warned this exact thing could happen. And we ignored it. The supervisor stiffened. "What report?" Turner studied him for a moment, then answered carefully. "The report someone hid." The supervisor's face shifted, not with confusion, but recognition. He knew. And that realization chilled Turner. Before more could be said, Turner's radio screamed again. "All units, medical emergency in Module E, possible officer down." Turner's pulse spiked. He turned to Holt. "Stay calm. Don't let anyone act without thinking." Holt nodded once. "We're not trying to make things worse. We're trying to survive this place." Turner sprinted toward Module E, the words, "not containable," pounding in his head with every step. Module E was dim when he arrived, only half-lit due to an electrical fault that maintenance had been scheduled to fix for over a week. Officers crowded around a locked staff office. Someone inside was calling for help. Turner forced the door open with a shoulder push. Inside, Officer Ramirez was sitting against the wall, clutching his arm, breathing heavily. He wasn't seriously harmed, but shaken, overwhelmed, exhausted. Ramirez pointed weakly to a nearby desk drawer. "Look what I found." Turner pulled it open. Inside was a second folder. Similar markings. Same investigation team. Same warnings. But this one was worse. It documented near misses. Moments when things almost broke completely. Had almost spiraled. Had almost crossed into territory that Rikers wasn't equipped to handle. And on the last page was a new handwritten note. "If the first report wasn't acted on, this one definitely won't be." Turner closed the folder, jaw tight. 2 hidden reports. 2 ignored warnings. And chaos breaking across the island like cracks in ice. Something wasn't just wrong on Rikers. Something was being covered. And Turner was now standing in the middle of it. The radio beeped again. "Turner, return to Seat 95. Holt wants to speak to you. Says he found something else." Turner froze for a second. Something else? He tightened his vest, grabbed the folder, and headed back. Because whatever Holt had found, it might explain everything. Turner moved quickly through the main corridor, the second hidden report tucked inside his vest. The hallways were louder now, radios buzzing, officers running between units, inmates shouting from behind their doors as tension rippled through the jail like a living thing. But Turner wasn't thinking about the noise. He was thinking about Holt's message. He found something else. What else could there be? 2 buried reports were already enough to expose months of neglect. But something in Holt's voice, relayed through the officer on the radio, made Turner's stomach tighten. Whatever Holt discovered wasn't just paperwork. It was bigger. He arrived at C-95 and saw Holt standing near the malfunctioning door, 3 inmates around him, all with the same serious expression. This wasn't confrontation. This wasn't rebellion. It was urgency. Holt stepped forward. "We found where the reports were supposed to go." Turner's pulse jumped. "Meaning what?" Holt gestured toward the back of the dorm. "You'd better see it yourself." Turner followed Holt past the rows of cots, past the peeling paint, past the flickering lights that buzzed like frustrated insects. Holt stopped at the far wall where a loose metal panel hung slightly crooked. Turner frowned. "Maintenance closet?" Holt shook his head. "Not exactly." He pulled the panel open. Behind it was a narrow passage, barely more than a crawl space, lined with dust and forgotten hardware. The air smelled stale, untouched. Turner crouched, shining a flashlight into the cramped tunnel. "Who found this?" Turner asked. One of the guys cleaning, Holt replied. Dropped a cup. It rolled under the panel. When he moved it, he found this. Turner crawled inside. At the far end of the passage was a wooden crate, small enough to miss, large enough to hide something important. Turner dragged it carefully into the dorm. He lifted the lid. Inside were 3 more folders. Same markings. Same investigation team. Same red flags. Turner's breath went shallow as he flipped through them. These weren't routine inspections. These were internal warnings drafted over a full year, each describing worsening conditions, forecasting failures, begging administrative leadership to intervene. But they hadn't. Instead, the folders were hidden in a wall. As Turner scanned the reports, Holt pointed to the bottom of the crate. There's more. Turner reached down and lifted a final sealed envelope. Unmarked. Unfiled. Unopened. It felt heavier than the rest. Holt watched him carefully. Open it. Turner tore the seal. Inside was a letter, typed, dated, and addressed to upper administration. A letter that summarized all 5 reports in blunt terms. It warned that staffing shortages would reach a critical level. It warned that malfunctioning infrastructure would lead to security breaches. It warned that medical delays could put lives at risk. It warned that inmates and staff were both in danger. And then the final paragraph hit Turner like a blow. If corrections leadership fails to act immediately, Rikers Island may experience an event that cannot be contained or reversed. Holt spoke quietly. Someone tried to tell them. They ignored them. Turner felt a wave of realization crash over him. This wasn't incompetence. It wasn't accident. It was neglect. Systematic, repeated, buried neglect. Wait until you see what happens when the next one starts. Hit subscribe, because this story is just getting started.